A lot in the news that we will be getting to as we continue through our program today. I want to start out. Joe Messina is on the line with us. He does the real side. TheRealSide.com is the website for his show. You can tweet him at The Real Side or at Joe Messina, and conservative commentator. Joe, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for being with us. So, I shared with you this morning, or I think Sean shared with you, this Common Dreams article suggesting that the reason that essentially that we have a renegade administration is because we didn't hold the George W. Bush administration responsible for their war crimes. And particularly the reason why John Bolton is still floating around loose, able to be pulled in by Donald Trump, is that we didn't hold George W. Bush accountable. I would expand that, frankly, and say that George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton didn't hold the Reagan administration accountable, and Jerry Ford didn't hold the Nixon administration accountable. We have, a history now, it goes back to 74, of presidents not holding previous administrations accountable for actual crimes. Your thoughts on this, Joe? Is it time to prosecute the Bush administration?
No, not at all. Not unless you're going to go prosecute, what are we going to talk about? The Obama administration, the Clinton administration. Let's do them all.
Well, where were the lies from Obama or Clinton that cost 4,000 American lives and 100,000 Iraqi lives?
Are you serious?
Yes, I am. George W. Bush lied us into a war. We all know it. And John Bolton was part of that. Donald Trump pointed this out, Joe. Come on. Donald Trump campaigned on this was the most stupid war, and George W. Bush lied to us. That was part of his campaign.
Most wars are stupid. I'm sorry, there's probably one place that you and I agree. We don't have to go.
This was a war based on lies.
People up on a regular basis.
I'm not sure World War II is stupid, Joe.
Well, I said most wars, not all, Tom.
So isn't it time to hold, Reagan had his little war in Grenada, just for publicity and re-election purposes. George Herbert Walker Bush had his little war, three-day war in Iraq. Jimmy Carter, I think, is the only president in my lifetime, and maybe Dwight Eisenhower, who didn't have a little war to help them get reelected. Even Lyndon Johnson did this with Vietnam.
So wait a minute. So you believe the wars were to get these guys elected, reelected?
Yeah. Well, this is what George W. Bush told his biographer, Mickey Herskowitz, in 1999, before when Mickey was interviewing him for this book, A Charge to Keep, which was the autobiography. It was ghostwritten by the first draft was written by Herskowitz, and George W. Bush told him explicitly, my father had all this political capital after he invaded Iraq, and he wasted it. Pointing out that the war was only 3 days long. It didn't run right up to the election. He said, if I get elected, I'm not going to waste my political capital. I'm going to invade Iraq, and I'm going to have a successful presidency, and I'm going to use the capital from that to get reelected and to privatize Social Security. He was right up front about it. I mean, Cindy Sheehan quoted this. I mean, this is not a secret. You can easily find this, Joe. And it's not just George W. Bush who did this. Richard Nixon lied to us in '72, saying he had a secret plan to end the Vietnam War, and he didn't.
Tom, the only problem I have with these conversations with people on the left is that it seems to be the mantra of the left that the right is always evil and wrong and dastardly.
I'm not talking about the right here, Joe Messina. I'm talking about specific. I'm talking about specific liars. George W. Bush and the people in his administration lied to us. They knew they were lying to us. Ask Colin, what's the lieutenant colonel's name who was Colin Powell's number 2 guy, Lawrence Wilkerson. Just ask Lawrence Wilkerson, and he'll tell you. His boss, Colin Powell, was lied to by Dick Cheney.
Look, your original question to me was,
shouldn't we prosecute these guys? Right?
Should we prosecute people? I say no. You're not going to prosecute a president. If you're going to tell me that you can prove he specifically went into these areas to go looking for the people to live there, to kill, wipe them out, just because he wanted to stay president, there was no other reason for it, okay, then maybe we should bring them in front of a real tribunal, not this kangaroo tribunal called the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Commission. Bring them in front of a real group of people Not this garbage that goes on, not this political crap that happens just because it makes one side look better than the other.
I don't think this is political, Joe. We've had, as I said, I would be fine if any of them were still alive with going after people who were in the LBJ administration as well. It's, that war was a crime as well. The Vietnam War was a crime too. And Lyndon Johnson jacked it up, and then Richard Nixon committed treason, as we all know now, in 1968 by contacting the Vietnamese after LBJ had worked out a peace treaty with them in August of 68, and went right to the South Vietnamese and said, if you continue the war and refuse to go along with this peace treaty that Johnson has worked out, I will give you a better deal and I will make you all rich. And now that we've got the tapes of Lyndon Johnson talking to Everett Dirksen, the head Republican, a leading Republican senator, frankly, somebody that I think is one of the most high integrity people who ever served in the Senate, and the guy was a Republican, and Lyndon Johnson is saying to him, the CIA has intercepted this, we've got this, we know what Nixon is doing, he's got to stop, this is treason. And Everett Dirksen says, yes, it is treason, and I'm going to contact Nixon and try and get him to stop, and they were unsuccessful. I mean, those tapes are out there in the public, Joe. I think our failure to hold administrations that commit crimes accountable is turning America into a lawless nation. Don't you get this?
Well, I agree with you, but I'm sure you wouldn't take it as far as I would, but I do agree with you. We are either a country of laws or we're not. And that means everything. I don't care. You can take that all the way from illegal immigration all the way up to lying to the FBI. If you're willing to take that swipe at it all, then you and I could be on the same team.
I absolutely am. I think it's insane to use war, which we can turn this into a conversation about immigration if you want, but I think we should stay focused on war crimes.
Yeah.
I think it is absolutely a crime to use war as a political instrument, and I think that both Democratic and Republican presidents have been doing this for 50 years, and doing it in violation of the Constitution, which says you can't have a war unless Congress declares it, whether it's Grenada or whether it's Iraq. And there hasn't been a war declared since 1941. Since what? 41, I think, was the declaration of war in December of 41.
Right. Yep. Well, we got
a serious problem here, Joe.
You and I would be more on the same page on this one than I think some people would be surprised. But as far as I don't know if I agree with you though, by bringing Bush in and holding him up to war crimes, that we wouldn't have John Bolton in the position he's in today, because you'd believe he would have been convicted in whatever.
Well, Bolton was one of the guys who was out there lying about weapons of mass destruction. I mean, he was part of that whole thing, and in the UN as well. He was until the Senate refused to confirm him. He was Bush's recess appointment to be the UN attorney. What do you call it? Ambassador.
But as usual, you have groups of a certain ilk that are saying there were no weapons of mass destruction found anywhere, no proof, no hint, and you've got other groups that say, yeah, there were weapons of mass destruction.
There weren't. And the group that says, oh yeah, there was, and they all went to Syria. No, we never found them in Syria either.
Yeah. Well, apparently, again, a story from years gone by, but apparently I remember when they were able to track when some of those weapons of mass destruction were taken into Russia, or were they taken back to Russia to cover for the Syrian president.
Who knows? I mean, you could make an argument that we knew at one time there were weapons there because Donald Rumsfeld went over and sold them to them during the Reagan administration. But those things were so out of date, they were useless. And by the way, Saddam Hussein did destroy them. He was afraid. The guy was writing a romance novel. That's what he was doing while he was running his country. When George Herbert Walker Bush, first attacked him. But we digress. Joe, how should we, in your opinion, how should we, going forward, be holding administrations accountable when they commit what, by the standards of the international community, and certainly I think by the standards of the United States, are crimes?
Look, Tom, we're probably closer to this than you can imagine. I think any president or any presidential administration should be held accountable for any crimes against our Constitution and.
So what's the mechanism of accountability outside of the ballot box?
That?
Well, basically the message we got from Obama when he became president was the method of accountability. The instrument for accountability is the ballot box. We need to be looking forward, not back, et cetera. I don't agree with that any longer.
I don't either. I don't agree that the ballot box is the best place to make these decisions sometimes, because people aren't paying attention. They're out working. They're out trying to feed their families. We have it on both sides. They vote from an ideological standpoint. I'm a D, so I vote D. I'm an R, so I vote R.
Right.
End of discussion. That's not American. That doesn't fix it for us.
Right. So
I agree with you there.
So how do you've got the International Criminal Court at The Hague? You're not apparently very enthusiastic about that. You've got the impeachment process, which is an indictment and a trial. But after the fact, how do you do it? Do you just have a federal grand jury come in and say, okay, we're going to prosecute this?
Yeah, I don't have an answer as to what I have for a committee or for a council that would handle this, but I think you're right. There has to be a way to hold past administrations accountable for not just war crimes, but crimes against Americans, if you would. Look at all the security breaches that are going on across the country, where people are getting our information and the administrations aren't doing anything about it.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't quite rise to the level of killing 100,000 people, but I agree with you. It's a crisis. Joe Messina, The Real Side with Joe Messina is the show. TheRealSide.com is the website.